In 1934, the biggest crack in the Vanderbilt dynasty, once the richest family in America, wasn't caused by a stock market crash or a bad business deal. It was a New York courtroom, torn apart by a bitter battle over a 10-year-old girl named Gloria. Once an unshakable American institution, the Vanderbilt's reign was about to be undone by a flood of public scandal, betrayal, and accusations of a life devoid of moral principles. This is the story of how a little girl's custody case exposed the rot deep inside America's royal family and helped bring their gilded age to a spectacular end. To understand how it all fell apart, you first have to grasp the sheer, mind-boggling scale of what the Vanderbilts actually had. The dynasty began with Cornelius Vanderbilt, a kid from humble beginnings on Staten Island, who quit school at 11, with a borrowed $100 from his mother. He started a small ferry service that absolutely exploded into a shipping and railroad empire. By the time he died in 1877, the Commodore, as he was known, had amassed a fortune of over $100 million. It's often said that was more money than the entire U.S. Treasury held at the time. He was a tough, foul-mouthed, and brutally competitive man who built his empire on pure grit. Believing the fortune had to stay consolidated to keep its power, he left the vast majority to his son, William Henry, hoping he'd carry on the legacy. And for a little while he did. William reportedly doubled the family fortune to nearly $200 million. But the Commodore's discipline? It didn't quite stick with the next generation. His grandchildren became famous not for making money, but for spending it in the most spectacular ways imaginable. They went on an epic spending spree, building a string of magnificent mansions along Fifth Avenue, each more over the top than the last. They threw parties that cost millions and built colossal, summer cottages in Newport, Rhode Island, like the Breakers. This was the era of Alva Vanderbilt, a fierce social climber who famously forced her own daughter, Consuelo, to marry a duke just to lock in the family's high society status. It was a world of unbelievable privilege, but underneath all that glitter, the foundation was starting to crack. The heirs were far more interested in yachts and racehorses than railroads, and the family's business empire began to shrink. The spending was completely unsustainable, and a culture of scandal was taking root. The stage for the ultimate Vanderbilt disaster was set by a fourth-generation heir, Reginald Reggie Claypool Vanderbilt. Known as an infamous playboy and gambler, Reggie was a master at one thing: burning through money. At just 42, his doctors gave him a stark warning: stop drinking or you will die. He didn't listen. Instead, he married a 17-year-old society beauty named Gloria Morgan. Just about a year and a half after their daughter, also named Gloria, was born, Reggie died of cirrhosis of the liver in 1925, having blown through his inheritance. He left his young wife almost nothing. But his baby daughter, little Gloria, was an heiress. She was entitled to half of a $5 million trust fund, around $2.5 million, which she couldn't touch until she was 21. Her mother, Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt, now a 20-year-old widow, was given a handsome allowance from the trust's interest to raise her child a massive sum, especially during the Great Depression. But the young widow didn't exactly settle into a quiet life of motherhood. She and her identical twin sister Thelma, known as the Magnificent Morgans, dove headfirst back into the international party circuit. Gloria Morgan set up a life in Paris, traveled all over Europe, and was a fixture at glamorous events, often leaving her young daughter with a beloved nanny named Dodo. To little Gloria, her mother was a beautiful stranger, glimpsed only fleetingly. This globe-trotting lifestyle, funded by her daughter's trust, did not go unnoticed by the powerful Vanderbilt family back in New York. The conflict finally blew up when little Gloria, then 8, was sent to New York for a tonsillectomy. Her paternal aunt, the powerful and respected Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney, suggested the girl stay with her on Long Island to recover. Gertrude was everything her sister-in-law was not: a renowned sculptor, a philanthropist, and the founder of the Whitney Museum of American Art. When Gloria Morgan agreed and headed back to Europe, the Vanderbilt family saw their chance. The court was notified that the child was now living with her aunt, and Gloria Morgan's allowance was slashed. Suddenly, Gloria Morgan realized that without her daughter, she was broke. She filed a petition to be made her daughter's official legal guardian, something that had never been formalized. Gertrude fought back, hard, claiming Gloria Morgan was an unfit mother. On October 1, 1934, the battle began. The courtroom was jammed with over 100 reporters, and the press immediately crowned it the trial of the century. For a depression-ravaged America, It was a scandalous, irresistible peek into the lives of the super-rich, and it did not disappoint. The accusations were sensational. Gertrude's lawyers brought out a parade of witnesses, chauffeurs, maids, and private detectives who painted a damning picture of Gloria Morgan's life. They testified about wild all-night parties, reckless spending, and a revolving door of lovers. The court heard claims of her reading vile books in bed with a German prince. But the testimony that caused the biggest explosion came from a French maid. She alleged she saw Gloria Morgan being kissed by another woman, Lady Milford Haven. "Just like a lover," the courtroom erupted. Tabloids screamed headlines about lesbianism, a shocking accusation at the time, and the judge immediately closed the trial to the public. This wasn't just about custody anymore. It was a public spectacle that put the entire Vanderbilt legacy on trial. The family's deepest, most embarrassing secrets were being aired out for a nation struggling through the Great Depression. The scandal seemed to confirm everyone's worst suspicions about the idle rich, revealing a world of moral decay behind the marble mansions. The turning point, though, came from 10-year-old Gloria herself. Taken into the judge's private chambers, the little girl gave a heartbreaking performance. When asked if she wanted to live with her mother, court records say she replied, "No, never. I have hardly seen her. She has never been nice to me." When the judge pressed, "Don't you think you could learn to love her?" Gloria's simple answer was, "No. She never even kissed me goodnight." It was devastating. Her mother's lawyers were floored and presented loving letters the girl had written her. But the damage was done. Years later, in her memoirs, Gloria Vanderbilt would reveal what she said was the truth. Her aunt's lawyer had coached her, telling her exactly what to say to the judge to make sure her mother would lose. She had been a pawn in a brutal family war, manipulated into betraying her own mother. Imagine being a 10-year-old girl caught in a feud where your childhood, your fortune, and your family's name are all on the line. This one trial became the flashpoint for a century of resentment, extravagance, and scandal. Stick around to see how the final verdict didn't just decide a little girl's future, it brought an entire dynasty to its knees. On November 21, 1934, the judge delivered his verdict. Custody of little Gloria was awarded to her aunt, Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney. Gloria Morgan Vanderbilt lost her daughter, her reputation, and her access to the trust fund that paid for her lifestyle. She was granted restricted visits on weekends. The press cruelly summed up the verdict with a little rhyme, "Rockabye baby. Up on a writ, Monday to Friday, mother's unfit." As the week ends, she rises in virtue. Saturdays, Sundays, mother won't hurt you. The public humiliation was total. The Vanderbilt name, once a symbol of untouchable power and success, was now linked to scandal, dysfunction, and moral failure. While the family's fortune had already been shrinking for decades thanks to absurd spending, bad management, and changing times, this trial was the fatal blow to their prestige. They had once lorded over Fifth Avenue with a string of grand mansions. By the late 1940s, almost all of them had been torn down. They had lost their most valuable asset, their reputation. The Great Vanderbilt Dynasty, built from a single ferry boat, didn't end in a Wall Street crash but with quiet sobs in a courtroom. The trial of the century laid bare the emptiness that had hollowed out America's greatest fortune. The family never got its standing back. There's a famous, telling anecdote that when the descendants of Cornelius Vanderbilt held a family reunion in 1973, there wasn't a single millionaire among them. Gloria Vanderbilt, the poor little rich girl at the center of it all, grew up to become an artist, author, and a pioneering fashion designer, launching one of the first lines of designer blue jeans. But the shadow of the trial followed her for her entire life, a constant reminder of a childhood lost to a family war. Her son, journalist Anderson Cooper, has said the trial was the O.J. case of its day, except bigger, because nothing like it had ever happened before. The Vanderbilt story is a powerful cautionary tale. It shows how wealth built over a lifetime can be squandered in just a few generations through wild extravagance and a lack of purpose. More than that, it proves that a fortune, no matter how huge, can never protect a family from its own demons. And a dynasty's greatest legacy can be undone not in the boardroom, but in the heart of a broken home. The fall of the Vanderbilts is one of history's most fascinating dramas of wealth, power, and scandal. If you found this story compelling, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell for more stories that shaped our world. And let us know in the comments, what other family dynasties should we explore next?